The lights on the bridge of the USS Dauntless dimmed as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Commander John Bishop stood from his captain's chair, straightening his uniform as the massive alien vessel appeared on the main view screen. "Well, that's certainly bigger than anything we've built," he said with a low whistle. Lieutenant Olivia Ward watched the alien ship with wide eyes. As communications specialist, today would be the most important day of her career. First contact with an advanced alien civilization called the Varini. "Sir, they're hailing us," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. John nodded. "On screen, Lieutenant." The alien that appeared had silvery skin that seemed to shimmer. Its 4 eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern, and tentacle-like appendages moved slowly around what might be its mouth. "I am Supreme Leader Vornak of the Varini Confederation," the alien said, its words translated through the ship's computer. "We welcome you to this sector of space." John smiled broadly. "Commander John Bishop of the Earth vessel Dauntless, on behalf of humanity, we're honored to meet you." The meeting was set for 1 hour later aboard the Varini vessel. John selected a small team including Olivia to accompany him. As they prepared to board the shuttle, Olivia reviewed her cultural notes. "Sir, remember the Varini consider eye contact to be aggressive, and try not to show your teeth when you smile." John nodded, only half listening. "Got it. No staring, no smiling." What could go wrong? The shuttle journey was short. When they boarded the alien vessel, they were led to a vast chamber where dozens of Varini officials waited in ceremonial formation. The Supreme Leader stepped forward. John, forgetting Olivia's warning in his excitement, looked directly into all 4 of the aliens' eyes and gave a wide, toothy grin. The room fell silent. Every Varini recoiled slightly. "Did you just threaten me, human?" the Supreme Leader asked. Olivia froze. John blinked in confusion. "Threaten? No, of course not. You bared your teeth and locked eyes. In our culture, this is a death challenge." John stared for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Well, that's an unfortunate misunderstanding. Where I come from, it's just being friendly." The Varini officials murmured among themselves, clearly disturbed by John's reaction. "You find a potential interspecies incident amusing?" asked Vornak. John shrugged. "No sense getting upset over a simple mistake. How about we start over?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flask. "On Earth, we sometimes share a drink to smooth over awkward moments." The Supreme Leader's tentacles twitched. "You brought poison to this meeting?" "It's whiskey," John said. "Well, poison if you have too much, I suppose, but that's part of the fun." In the corner of the chamber, a Varini observer named Ziltan was recording everything. These humans were not behaving according to any known diplomatic protocol. They made mistakes, laughed about them, then offered to deliberately ingest mild toxins together as a bonding ritual. After some careful explanation from Olivia, the meeting continued. The humans didn't seem the least bit concerned about the rough start. They discussed trade, shared scientific knowledge, and even made jokes about their biological differences. Later, aboard the Varini command ship, Ziltan filed his preliminary report. "These humans represent a potential danger unlike any species we have encountered, not because of their technology, which is primitive, or their physical abilities, which seem unremarkable. The danger lies in their complete lack of appropriate caution. They laugh at diplomatic incidents. They casually discuss ingesting substances that alter their mental state. They seem utterly unaware of how easily they could trigger interstellar conflict through their recklessness. Most concerning of all, they don't seem to care. Recommend extensive study before further contact. These creatures aren't merely dangerous, they're dangerously unaware of their own disruptive potential in the galactic community." The report was transmitted to Varini High Command, marked highest priority. Within the day, a new directive was issued. Observe the humans closely. Very closely indeed. Dr. Samantha Peters hunched over her microscope in the shared research station. 3 months had passed since first contact with the Varini, and now scientists from both species worked together in this neutral space laboratory. The station orbited a small moon in what humans called the Epsilon Eridani system. "That's interesting," she muttered, making a note on her tablet. Alan Wright, her military escort, leaned against the wall nearby. He wasn't a scientist, but his job was to keep an eye on Dr. Peters and make sure the aliens didn't try anything funny. So far, the Verini seemed peaceful enough, but military command wasn't taking chances. "What's interesting, Doc?" Alan asked, stifling a yawn. "This bacterial strain from the Verini homeworld. It's similar to something we might find on Earth, but with key differences in its cell structure." From across the lab, Ziltan watched the humans with unblinking eyes. As the official Verini observer, he had been studying humans for weeks now. Each day brought new surprises and concerns. Dr. Peters suddenly stood up straight. "I think I need a closer look at how this reacts with human tissue." Before anyone could stop her, she pricked her finger with a small needle and placed a drop of her blood onto a slide. Chiltan rushed over. "Dr. Peters, you have exposed yourself to an alien pathogen. We must activate quarantine protocols immediately." Samantha looked up, surprised. "Oh, it's fine. I calculated the risk. This particular strain can't survive in human blood above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Our normal body temperature will kill it." "But you cannot be certain," Ziltan protested. "That's why I'm testing it," she replied with a shrug. "Best way to learn is to observe directly." Alan chuckled. "Don't worry about Sam. She does this kind of thing all the time. Last month she ate some weird fungus from Europa just to see if it was digestible." Ziltan's skin paled to a lighter silver. "Deliberately ingesting unknown substances? This behavior is disturbing." Later that day, in the station's fitness room, Alan was working out. He had added extra weights to the specialized equipment, pushing himself harder than usual. Several Verini scientists gathered to watch. "Why do you do this?" one asked. "It appears painful." Alan grunted as he lifted the heavy bar. "No pain, no gain. Gotta keep pushing or you get soft. But you are causing micro tears in your muscle tissue," another Verini observed. "Yeah, that's the point," Alan said between breaths. "They heal stronger. That's how we improve." He set down the weights with a loud clang. Several Verini jumped back, startled by the sound and the casual display of strength. Alan had been lifting more than 3 times what their strongest warriors could manage. That evening, Ziltan sent his weekly report to Verini High Command. Human biological resilience exceeds all projections. They intentionally expose themselves to pathogens as a research method. They deliberately damage their bodies to increase strength. When I questioned Dr. Peters about safety protocols, she said, "Sometimes you have to roll the dice to get results. Most troubling is their resistance. Initial tests show humans can withstand radiation levels that would kill a Verini. Their digestive systems can neutralize compounds toxic to most species. They recover from injuries at remarkable rates. What other species would consider extreme? Biowarfare humans call Tuesday at the gym. They seem unaware of how terrifying this makes them to others. Recommendation: exercise extreme caution in biological information sharing. These humans are walking biological weapons who don't even realize it." Additional note: Alan Wright mentioned that Dr. Peters is not even the crazy one in their research division. There are apparently humans who take even greater risks in the name of science. As Ziltan sent the report, he watched Dr. Peters deliberately expose another tissue sample to a different alien microbe, humming happily to herself as she worked. Captain Eric Gray stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Journey, watching stars streak by as they traveled toward Earth. 6 months had passed since first contact, and this ship carried the first official Verini delegation to humanity's homeworld. Dr. Lisa Young joined him, tablet in hand. As the ship's psychologist, she had been asked to participate in a unique experiment, a joint psychological study comparing how humans and Verini responded to crisis situations. "Are we ready for today's simulation?" Eric asked. Lisa nodded. "The Verini psychologist Kelmore is setting up now. He seems very interested in how we'll react." "Let's not disappoint our guests," Eric said with a smile. They walked to the simulation chamber where Kelmore waited. The tall, silver-skinned alien bowed slightly in greeting. "Thank you for participating, Captain," Kelmore said. "Today's scenario will test emergency response patterns. Please enter the chamber when ready." Inside the simulation room, holographic projectors created a realistic environment. Today's scenario, a ship corridor with a sudden hull breach. Eric and 3 other human crew members entered first, while Kelmore observed from the control room. The WIO simulation began. Warning alarms blared as a hole appeared in the hull, air rushing out. Without hesitation, Eric shouted orders. 2 crew members ran toward the breach while another pulled an injured person to safety. Eric himself grabbed an emergency patch kit and joined the others at the breach. Kelmore ended the simulation after 5 minutes. He looked troubled. "Is something wrong?" Lisa asked. "Your people ran toward the danger," Kelmore said. "All of them?" "Of course," Eric replied. "That's how you stop a bad situation from getting worse." Next, a group of Varani entered the same simulation. When the hull breach occurred, they immediately sealed off the affected section and retreated to safety positions, following strict protocols. They saved the ship but abandoned the injured crew member in the process. Afterward, in the observation room, Kelmore reviewed the data with Lisa. "Your species appears to have defective survival instincts," he said. "In 10 simulations, humans consistently placed themselves at risk when safer options existed." Lisa smiled. "We don't see it that way. We call it heroism, self-sacrifice, holding the line." "But it defies logic," Kelmore insisted. "Individual survival should be the priority." "Sometimes the group matters more than the individual," Lisa explained. "It's deeply ingrained in our culture. We celebrate those who risk everything for others." "Captain," Eric joined them, looking at the results on the screen. "What's the verdict, Doc? Are we crazy by alien standards?" Kelmore's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Your response patterns are concerning. You seek out danger rather than avoid it. In a diplomatic crisis, this unpredictability could be problematic." Eric laughed and patted the alien on what approximated a shoulder. "Yeah, we're kind of stubborn that way, but it's served us well so far." That night, Kelmore sent a private message to the Varani High Command. "Human psychological assessment complete. Results are disturbing. These creatures consistently demonstrate behavior that contradicts self-preservation. They run toward explosions. They enter toxic environments to save others. They volunteer for dangerous tasks. When questioned, they speak of concepts like duty and courage, as if these abstract ideas should outweigh personal safety." Captain Gray laughed when I suggested their behavior was irrational. "Most concerning observation. They don't value their individual lives appropriately. This makes them unpredictable tactical opponents. In a conflict, standard containment strategies would fail because humans do not retreat when logically they should." Recommendation: avoid any actions that might trigger their protective instincts. A species that doesn't fear death appropriately is a species we cannot effectively intimidate or control. As the ship continued its journey to Earth, Lisa noticed Kelmore watching the human crew with new wariness in his eyes. Chief Engineer Maya Collins wiped sweat from her forehead as she adjusted the final connections on her prototype. For the past 3 months, she had been working at the Lunar Defense Base, studying Varani technology that had been shared as part of the new alliance. "Hand me that wrench, would you?" she asked, pointing without looking up. Security Officer Ryan Ford passed her the tool. "Will it work this time?" "If it doesn't, we'll try again tomorrow," Maya replied with a shrug. 1 year had passed since first contact. Earth and the Varani had established formal diplomatic relations, sharing certain technologies as a show of good faith. The Varani had provided plans for their standard propulsion system, expecting it would take humans decades to understand, let alone improve upon it. Maya had redesigned it in 6 weeks. Zevra, the Varani technologist assigned to monitor human progress, entered the workshop. His silvery skin reflected the bright laboratory lights. "You have modified the design again," he observed, his tone neutral but his 4 eyes widening slightly. Maya nodded, connecting the final wire. The original was inefficient. All that energy wasted as heat. I rerouted the plasma flow and added a secondary cooling system. Such modifications would destabilize the core matrix, Zevra stated. That's why I redesigned the matrix too, Maya said casually. Ryan, hit the switch. Ryan pressed a button on the control panel. The hybrid engine hummed to life, glowing with blue energy. The diagnostic screen showed power levels 30% higher than the original Verini design. Zevra moved closer, his tentacle appendages twitching in what might have been surprise. This should not be possible. You have had access to our technology for less than 1 Earth year. Ryan laughed. You should see what Maya can do with a coffee maker. Last Christmas she turned mine into a mini distillery. Speaking of which, Maya said, wiping her hands on a rag. This engine design would work great for that colony ship project. With these power levels, we could reach Alpha Centauri in half the time. Ryan nodded thoughtfully. Or we could adapt it for the new defense cruisers. The extra power would support those shield improvements the military has been asking for. Zevra's skin paled. You immediately consider military applications? Well, yeah, Ryan said. That's kind of my job. Security applications for new tech. This engine could help protect our colonies. I expected your species would use this for exploration or commerce, Zevra said. Maya looked confused. We'll use it for everything. That's the point of good technology, right? It's versatile. Later that day, Zevra composed a message to the Galactic Council, the interspecies governing body that the Verini belonged to. Humans do not follow expected patterns of technological development. They make intuitive leaps that bypass entire stages of what we consider logical progression. Engineer Collins combined our propulsion technology with elements of their primitive fusion reactors to create something that exceeds both. Most concerning is their approach. They immediately consider all applications simultaneously. When presented with faster engines, they discuss both exploration vessels and weapons platforms in the same conversation. Security Officer Ford casually mentioned 3 military uses for technology we considered purely scientific. When I expressed surprise, he seemed confused by my reaction. Recommendation: the Council must debate whether humans are deliberately hiding their true technological capacity. Their progress rate exceeds all projections by our science division. Additional note: Engineer Collins described her work as just tinkering. If this represents casual human innovation, their potential technological growth curve is deeply concerning. As Zevra sent his report, Maya was already disassembling her prototype, muttering about further improvements she could make to the design. I think if we reconfigure the intake manifold, she said to Ryan, we might get another 10% boost. Ryan grinned. The Verini aren't going to know what hit them. It's not a competition, Maya said, then paused. But if it was, we'd be winning. Ambassador William Carter adjusted his tie as he entered the large meeting chamber aboard the neutral diplomatic station. After 18 months of interspecies relations, this was the first major gathering of all 12 known spacefaring civilizations. The station orbited a gas giant in neutral space, built specifically for this historic summit. Lieutenant Nicole Adams followed close behind him. As his security detail, she kept her eyes moving, scanning the room filled with aliens of all shapes and colors. Quite a turnout, William whispered. Stay alert, sir, Nicole replied quietly. Some of these species haven't officially recognized Earth yet. William nodded and moved toward his assigned seat. The human delegation was small compared to others. The Verini had sent 20 representatives and the insect-like Krith had brought nearly 50. Thorok, the bulky reptilian representative of the Galactic Council, called the meeting to order. His scales shimmered under the bright lights as he welcomed everyone. Today we discuss trade routes and resource sharing, Thorok announced. But first, security protocols for this station. He never finished his sentence. The lights suddenly cut out, and emergency warnings began to blare. The chamber filled with shouts and movement. All delegations return to your ships, a voice announced over the speakers. Unknown vessels have bypassed our defenses. Before anyone could move, the station shook violently. William stumbled, catching himself on the edge of a table. "We're under attack," Nicole said, drawing her sidearm. "Sir, we need to get you back to our shuttle." But evacuation was impossible. The doors to the chamber sealed automatically as part of the station's emergency protocol. They were locked in with representatives from 11 other species, many now panicking. William looked around at the chaos. Then he did something unexpected. He climbed onto the central table and whistled loudly. "Everyone listen up," he shouted. "This station has emergency defenses. Who here has command access?" The alien stared at him. Thorok stepped forward. "I do, but communications are down. We cannot coordinate with security teams." William turned to Nicole. "Lieutenant, can you access the station's systems from here?" She nodded, already moving, to a control panel. "If I can reach the main computer, yes." William addressed the room again. "We need to organize. My security officer can get into the defense systems, but we'll need help." Without waiting for permission, William began assigning tasks. The Verini, with their 4 arms, were sent to barricade the doors. The Krith, with their enhanced vision, kept watch through viewing ports. Nicole worked quickly at the panel, her fingers flying across the alien interface. "Sir, I've got access," she called, "but the weapon systems are offline. Can we get them back?" Nicole frowned. "Not from here, but..." Her eyes lit up. "The maintenance bots, they're still active." 20 minutes later, the station's cleaning and repair robots had been reprogrammed into a defensive force. Under Nicole's control, they moved through the station's corridors, disrupting the attackers. William had turned the chamber's furniture into a defensive position. When one of the doors was breached, he and representatives from 3 other species fought back using makeshift weapons. The attack was over in less than an hour. The unknown enemies, later identified as pirates from beyond known space, retreated when they realized the station was not as defenseless as they had thought. After the all-clear, Thorok approached William and Nicole. "You took command without authorization," he said, his voice low. William shrugged. "Someone had to." "And your security officer turned maintenance equipment into weapons in minutes," Thorok continued. "This is concerning." Nicole looked confused. "We did what needed to be done. Isn't that what anyone would do?" "No," Thorok said simply. "It is not." That evening, he sent a private message to his government. The humans responded to crisis in an unprecedented manner. While other species sought shelter or followed evacuation protocols, the humans immediately organized a defense using whatever was available. Most troubling, they assumed leadership without permission and modified station equipment without authorization. Yet I cannot deny their actions likely saved many lives. Recommend increased observation of human crisis response patterns. They appear programmed to take control when systems fail, regardless of established hierarchy. What kind of evolutionary history creates a species that instinctively organizes strangers in a fight, rather than fleeing to safety? Whatever shaped humans has made them uniquely dangerous and uniquely effective in chaos. Fleet Admiral Kevin Morrison stood before the massive curved table of the Galactic Senate. 2 years had passed since first contact, and in that time, humanity had built 15 new ships with hybrid human-alien technology. This rapid expansion had alarmed many species. The Senate chamber was filled with representatives from all known spacefaring civilizations. Thousands of eyes, some with multiple pairs, watched Kevin with suspicion. Beside him stood Grace Johnson, Earth's communications director, ready to translate any difficult concepts. Ulthar, the jellyfish-like Speaker of the Senate, floated in a water-filled pod at the center of the chamber. His tentacles glowed with bioluminescent patterns as he spoke. "Fleet Admiral Morrison, the Senate demands an explanation for Earth's aggressive military buildup," Ulthar said, his translated voice echoing through the chamber. "In 2 standard years, your fleet has grown by 15 capital ships." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "Aggressive? We consider this quite moderate. We're operating at only 5% of our industrial capacity." A wave of murmurs spread through the assembly. Grace winced slightly at Kevin's bluntness. 5%? Ulthar's tentacles pulsed with bright colors. "Are we to understand that Earth could produce 20 times this number of vessels? At least, Kevin replied with a nod. During our Second World War, we converted our entire manufacturing base to military production in just months. We built over 100,000 aircraft and 60,000 naval vessels in that conflict alone. The murmurs grew louder. A representative of the Krith stood up, mandibles clicking. Your Second World War? This was against another human nation? Grace stepped forward. Yes, it was one of several global conflicts in our history. Minor compared to some earlier wars. Minor? The Krith representative's antennae twitched in agitation. Your records show over 60 million deaths, as I said, Grace continued. Calmly. A relatively minor conflict by historical standards. The chamber fell silent. Kevin could feel the tension growing. He hadn't come here to frighten anyone, but the facts of human history couldn't be denied. Ulthar's glow dimmed slightly. If your species possesses such industrial and military potential, why haven't you attempted to conquer neighboring systems? Our intelligence shows at least 3 planets in your vicinity with valuable resources. Kevin laughed. Why would we? Conquest is expensive and messy. We'd rather trade and learn from you. War is such a waste of good drinking time. No translator could fully capture the idiom, but the message was clear. Humans had the capacity for tremendous military action but preferred not to use it. This makes no logical sense, another senator called out. If you have power, you should use it for expansion. Grace smiled diplomatically. Humanity has learned some hard lessons from our own history. We fight when we must, but we've found cooperation is usually more profitable in the long run. As the session continued, a small group of senators gathered in a side chamber to discuss the implications of what they'd heard. Are they threatening us? Asked a Varini senator. Or is this some bizarre form of human humor? Wondered a representative from the crystalline Drell species. Neither, I think, replied Ulthar, who had joined them. This is something we haven't encountered before. A species with tremendous destructive capacity that genuinely prefers not to use it. Can we believe them? The Varini asked. That's what troubles me, Ulthar said, his tentacles pulsing slowly. I think they're telling the truth. They could build a fleet to challenge the entire Senate, but they'd rather share drinks with us instead. A species that powerful with so little ambition for conquest. It defies everything we know about evolutionary psychology, Ulthar concluded, and that makes them the most unpredictable variable in galactic politics. Later, as Kevin and Grace returned to their ship, Grace asked, Do you think we scared them? Kevin shrugged. Probably. But better they know now than get surprised later. Besides, I wasn't lying. I really would rather have a drink with them than fight them. President Daniel Clark looked out the tall windows of the Oval Office. The Washington Monument stood in the distance, gleaming in the morning sun. After 3 years of interstellar relations, today might be the most important day yet for humanity's future. Secretary of Defense Stephanie Miller sat across from him, reviewing information on her tablet. The door opened, and a White House aide escorted in their visitor, Varini War General Kazatur. The alien was taller than most of his kind, his silver skin darker with age and his 4 eyes set deep in his face. He wore an elaborate uniform marked with symbols of his rank. General Kazatur, Daniel said, rising to greet him. Welcome to Earth. I trust your journey was comfortable? It was adequate, Kazatur replied stiffly. I come on urgent business, not for comfort. Daniel smiled. Of course. Would you like some coffee while we talk? The alien looked confused by the offer. I bring terms from a coalition of 17 spacefaring species, and you offer beverages? It's how we do things here, Daniel said, gesturing to a chair. We can talk and drink at the same time. After the Varini reluctantly sat down, Daniel ordered coffee for himself and water for their guest. Stephanie placed her tablet on the table, between them. So, Daniel said, what are these terms you mentioned? Kazatur straightened. The coalition has observed Earth's rapid expansion into space with growing concern. In 3 years, you have established colonies on 4 planets and built a fleet of 37 ships with advanced weapons. This pace is unacceptable. I see, Daniel said calmly. And what does the coalition propose? Humans must limit their expansion to no more than one new ship per Earth year, and no new colonies for the next decade. These are our terms. Daniel sipped his coffee thoughtfully. No anger showed on his face. That's quite a demand, General. May I ask what happens if we decline? The coalition represents over 70% of galactic military power, Castor said. We would prefer peaceful agreement, but we are prepared to enforce these terms. Stephanie, who had been silent until now, tapped her tablet. A holographic display appeared above the table showing a map of Earth's defensive systems. General, I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said calmly. What you see here is just our public defense network. We haven't shared information about our planetary shield technology or our deep space sensor array. Castor's eyes widened slightly as the display changed to show more complex systems. These defenses could withstand an attack from your entire coalition, Stephanie continued, her voice matter of fact. Not that we want to test that, of course. Daniel nodded. We value peace, General. That's why, instead of limiting our growth, I propose the opposite, an open-door policy. We'll share our innovations with your coalition. Everyone advances together. You would share military technology with potential adversaries? Castor asked, clearly confused. We don't see you as adversaries, Daniel replied. We see potential partners. Castor was silent for a moment. I don't understand. With your advantages, why aren't you more aggressive? Why not use your position to dominate? Stephanie laughed softly. We've already fought ourselves enough to know better. History has taught us that domination is expensive and temporary, Daniel added. Cooperation lasts longer and costs less, it's just good business. Later, as Castor's ship prepared to leave Earth orbit, he sent a final report to the coalition. Humans rejected our terms but offered no threats in return. Instead, they proposed sharing their advancements with us. Their defensive capabilities far exceed our intelligence estimates. They could likely resist our combined forces, yet they speak of partnership instead of conflict. President Clark invited me to return next month for further discussions. He suggested a cultural exchange program alongside technological sharing. Leave more confused than when I arrived. These humans possess the power to challenge us, yet they show no interest in galactic domination. Secretary Miller explained their philosophy as, a rising tide lifts all boats, apparently meaning prosperity should be shared. Recommendation: accept their counteroffer of partnership. Military action against Earth would be costly at best, disastrous at worst. And strangely, I believe they genuinely prefer friendship to conquest. Retired Marine Frank Lewis sat on his front porch in rural Montana, drinking lemonade as the summer sun began to set. 4 years had passed since first contact, and Earth was now firmly established in the galactic community. Across from him sat Jixtra, a small green alien with large eyes who had come to Earth as part of a cultural exchange program. Officially, Jixtra was an anthropologist studying human behavior in natural settings. Unofficially, everyone knew these exchange scholars were gathering intelligence. Frank didn't mind. After 30 years in the Marines, he understood the value of knowing your neighbors. So, Frank said, "What do you want to know today?" Jixtra adjusted the recording device on his wrist. I am curious about human self-perception. Most species we encounter view themselves as either superior or inferior to others. How do humans see themselves in cosmic terms? Frank thought for a moment. We're explorers, not conquerors. Always been that way. We climb mountains because they're there, go to space because it's the next frontier. But your military capabilities suggest preparation for dominance, Jixtra said. Frank laughed. We build strong defenses because we've spent most of our history fighting ourselves. Doesn't mean we want to fight others. Miles away in Chicago, college student Amy Harris was showing another alien visitor around her campus. Jixtra's colleague had been assigned to study younger humans. This is our library, Amy explained, guiding the tall blue alien through the building. And over there is where we hang out after class. Your studies are very diverse, the alien noted, looking at the course listings. You personally study both art and astrophysics? Amy shrugged. I like both. Why choose? Later, Amy invited several alien exchange students to her apartment for what she called a movie night. She showed them human entertainment ranging from comedies to science fiction. These stories, Dijkstra observed after joining the group, humans are often portrayed as weaker than alien species, yet they prevail through what you call determination. Yeah, we love underdog stories, Amy explained, sorting through her movie collection. Nothing better than beating the odds. But your species is demonstrably powerful, another alien noted. Why portray yourselves as weak? Amy looked confused. We don't think of ourselves as particularly powerful. We're just us. After a month of field research, Dijkstra met with his team to compile their findings. They gathered in their ship, hidden in orbit around Earth's moon. They don't see themselves as the most dangerous species, one researcher said. Precisely, Dijkstra replied. That's the most important discovery. Humans are dangerous precisely because they don't think they are. They don't seek domination because they're busy challenging themselves. Dijkstra began preparing his final report to the Galactic Council. After extensive observation, we conclude that humans represent a unique case in galactic sociology. They possess military strength, industrial capacity, and psychological traits that make them formidable, yet they lack the expansionist drive we expected. Why? Because humans have been their own worst enemies for thousands of years. Their history is filled with internal conflicts that shape their development. Having nearly destroyed themselves multiple times, they've developed a cultural aversion to unnecessary conflict. They value freedom of choice above efficiency. They celebrate diversity over uniformity. They find satisfaction in personal growth rather than collective dominance. Recommendation: leave humans alone to develop naturally but maintain observation. They are allies worth having and enemies best avoided. Their technological growth continues to exceed projections, but their cultural values appear stable. In summary, humans are the most dangerous species because they combine capability with restraint, power with wisdom. And they truly don't care about galactic dominance. They're too busy exploring, creating, and challenging themselves to be concerned with ruling others. The next day, before leaving Earth, Dijkstra returned to Montana to say goodbye to Frank. I've enjoyed our talks, the alien said. You've been most helpful. Frank nodded. Come back anytime. Bring some of those snacks from your world next time. You would eat alien food? Dijkstra asked, surprised. Why not? Life's about trying new things, Frank replied with a smile. Besides, we're all just travelers in the same big universe, aren't we? As Dijkstra's ship left orbit, Amy posted on her social media, made an alien friend today, taught them poker. They're coming back next week with snacks from their homeworld. The post went viral within hours. Throughout human space, the message was clear. The galaxy was full of new friends to meet, new things to learn, and new challenges to overcome. And that was far more interesting than conquest could ever be.